Hello everyone and welcome to the Road to Country Home. This special will be dedicated to the lead up to the reveal of the new Donkey Kong game by Nintendo EPD. I don't want to say E3, even if things do seem likely, because there is a chance that it may not show at E3. However, there will be a follow-up episode to this, whether the game is revealed at E3 or not. It will be a continuous speculation, or it will be speculation and an analysis of whichever variation of gameplay or footage they choose to show that day. I wouldn't be too discouraged if it doesn't show at E3, because next month is also the 40th anniversary of Donkey Kong, which leads to our next part here, the 40th, part 1. A lot of people have been asking, is Nintendo going to acknowledge the 40th anniversary of Donkey Kong? And I believe Nintendo will. I do. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as bombast as Pokemon's anniversary this year, or Mario's 35th. But I'm sure they'll still do something. I don't think we're going to see any theme park tie-ins. Like, people are saying, maybe we'll get a glimpse of the theme park. Unless they have, like, some CGI render or something, I don't see it happening. They're just not ready to show anything in any of the 4 parks that it's going to. It's still very much in construction right now in Japan. I'm sure they've made some headway since the last time we've seen any aerial footage. But unless it's computer generated, I think they're going to want to wait till closer to release. What's interesting about that is just a few days ago, we saw that the name of the theme park on the concept art that was leaked was called Donkey Kong Country. Now, Donkey Kong Country is a first in Japan, because that game was called Super Donkey Kong in 1994, and there was never a usage of the country brand after that, not even on the Retro Studios games afterwards. You know, I think that that should be very interesting. In fact, they had a CGI video where which appeared to have a music contribution number to it. So I was thinking they had, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, she's a British music singer, Charlie XCX there. So I was thinking, what if they had Billie Eilish there, the newly rendered Clapper the Seal, as a reference to that t-shirt that had Clapper on it. Or perhaps maybe one of my favorites, like Silver Gunner. I'm sure many of you know the sort of humorous remix of instrumentals of original source material of video game soundtracks, who's a genius, by the way. Made a soundtrack with one of my favorites of Dua Lipa. Now, if you've not actually seen it, I would recommend checking it out right now on Silver Gunner's channel. But before I derail any further, I'm not going to go into the brief history of it all. I was thinking about it, but if you really want a detailed summary of how things went for the Donkey Kong brand after the buyout, I would recommend checking out DKVine.com. They have a full written context there. I know that sounds like me copping out and taking the lazy way out of having to explain it, but really I feel like they've done it enough justice that you can read all the details, because I'm sure by now many of you have already heard the story and read it somewhere, whether it's through them or through my Twitter posts. All you need to know is that Donkey Kong lost its home, and Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Advance sold the most money out of all of the brands during the mid-2000s, which solidified Country as the brand home. And that there are young staff at EPD in Japan that really want to work with Donkey Kong. And Miyamoto's been championing as well. So you have the best of Miyamoto himself and the up-and-coming. You can't really go wrong there. So, what I will say is that the next part of this will be discussing Miyamoto a little bit. His blessing of Donkey Kong Country as the series' definitive image. A lot of people are like, oh, Miyamoto's coming around, he's accepting Donkey Kong Country. That's not like, it's not like he was an outsider to the whole thing. He was very heavily involved with the original Donkey Kong Country. It wasn't like he just came to terms with it and raised his white flag and surrender that arcade 1981 DK is no longer the franchise's definitive image. Its world, its lore. Because he, you know, even if he wasn't directly hands-on on the team, he had communicated with Tim Stamper almost every day. And Tim Stamper, for those who don't know, is the co-founder of Rare, and worked on Donkey Kong Country with the team. And so that aside from he also has been championing that Donkey Kong be brought back in-house, like I previously mentioned. He also has been overseeing a lot of the Universal theme park. And his admiration for Donkey Kong Country, I think, is a big reason why we're starting to see all those things, in that sort of, maybe even the title, who knows, but it's we have him to thank for what's coming. So another question that I wanted to clear things up, the next topic being, is this the Super Mario Odyssey team in Tokyo making this game? To that I say, yes and no. Nintendo EPD is not a singular one team. They're this massive scale institution that houses probably over a dozen teams by now. To different IPs and such, Nintendo IPs, whether they're new IPs like Splatoon or just existing IPs. They were the merger of EAD and SPD back in 2015. And so this appears to be an all-new dedicated team to the Donkey Kong brand, so that a consistent line can be had. We won't have to wait another 7 years for another game and wait to see who's doing it or when they're doing it. Rather, it's like all these abandonments we've had since the buyout. Donkey Kong's not had a stable home team to keep making release after release. He's just been all over the place, like Payon and Retro, and they've done pretty good jobs, great jobs in fact, they were not going to be stable homes to the brand. But so the part where Odyssey comes into play is this appears to be in Tokyo, and that's where the Mario Odyssey team was, production number 8, and that was the only EPD production team in Japan, of Tokyo, Japan, I should say. But since you look at the street signs in Odyssey, you got to think, well, the person who made those street signs is probably on the new Donkey Kong team. There are members of the Super Mario Odyssey team that very much probably will be involved with this new Donkey Kong game. It's just not the entirety of the Odyssey team itself. So another part of this was, is this game going to be 2D or is it going to be 3D? Well, just a few days after I had made these notes, a specific leaker had been banned from Reset Era. I'm not going to go into the gossip and drama about it, but all I'll say is this person was saying Donkey Kong is 2D, and false leaks got this person banned. So, and I never really believed that anyone really knew what the actual platform genre is going to be, but all I can say when it comes to those insiders is believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. What do I personally want to see? I don't really care one way or another. I just want it to be ambitious, People ask, do you want 2D? I see a lot of people wanting 3D, and I definitely understand why, because we haven't had a 3D Donkey Kong game since 1999. And, yeah, I just think there's so many perks to so many ways, and I know that sounds like me just, being an outright shill for the game. Oh, he's gonna love it even if it's, this or that, or it's being open-minded, And I think that we should all respect the opinions of others. Like, people have a right not to like certain things, but if the game gets revealed and maybe it's 2D, it's not what you expected, or maybe you wanted another country-like game and it is 3D, just keep it civil. And just be respectful and, let your voices be heard. That way we can get, Nintendo will hear that and perhaps even take it into account. But the one thing to remember is that even if this game's not 3D now, or even, any other 2D, 2.5D, the franchise is home now, so it's not like we have to wait for Retro Studios to finish Metroid Prime 4 or anything else. Now we have a foundation for Donkey Kong. Now we can see a consistent line of releases going forward. So if this game is 2D, we can still get our quote-unquote Odyssey game later. And if this game's 3D, we can still get our country line of games. So for this whole project, it's like the internal EPD Nintendo has this old school tradition of respecting other teams' creations. It's why Wario can't get into the mainline Mario games with the exception of Super Mario 64 DS, because R&D1 created him, not EAD. But now that Country has been the definitive branding for the Donkey Kong IP on the whole, Nintendo EPD's in this weird position where they have to use the main core cast members of the Donkey Kong Country series, like Diddy and Rambi. Now that Rare is owned by the competition and not making Donkey Kong games anymore, it really doesn't matter And they're with Microsoft now, so it's not like they're intruding on Rare's creations. Nintendo EPD has pretty much had to adopt those characters in-house as their own. Miyamoto's favorite is even Cranky Kong. Or one of his favorites. I don't know if it's his favorite, but you have to imagine it is. He wanted him in Donkey Kong Country Returns, so yeah. And K. Rool, after his explosive popularity, I really do not see him missing out on this. Now, I was thinking there probably won't be a whole lot of, like, in the first game, they try to make it as bare bones as possible, with a lot of limitations and a lot of restrictions on who can show up, when they can show up. Obviously, like, look at Returns. It had the bare bone cast of Donkey, Diddy, Rambi, and Cranky at the shop. You get the Tropical Freeze, it loosened up a bit. They were able to put in Dixie, and Cranky became playable, Funky became playable on the Switch port. So, I think Game 1 very much could have more than just Donkey, Diddy, K. Rool, Cranky, and Rambi. But we might not see a whole lot of the extended Kong family until the sequels, when they'll have more freedom to explore the lush history of Donkey Kong. But then again, every Donkey Kong production that we've had so far, besides, like, you know, well, I'm not talking about the spin-offs like Tropical Freeze Switch and, like, that's a port of an existing game that existed already, or Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle DLC. We haven't had a new mainline game entry since Tropical Freeze Wii U. And that was before the ballot. So the ballot might have actually changed the way they look at legacy characters, which is a question that one of our Twitter users in the chat had brought up and saying, I have it written here, hold on, but that the question was, does the ballot influence how Nintendo views the Donkey Kong series and its progress and evolution? I think I'm saying that right. I'm just going to pull up here. I'm sorry, I probably should have had this before I started the recording all this, but the question specifically comes from Kremlin Cutthroat 19. You'll probably cover it already, but how do you think the Smash ballot helped the IP? My take is K. Rool won the ballot, Banjo finished high, as well as Crystal and Dixie, and that was a wake-up call to Nintendo that there's a huge, Rare fan base that they've neglected. Thoughts? My thoughts on that are, I don't think that the ballot necessarily changed the direction of the Donkey Kong franchise. It might have influenced how they looked at the legacy characters, but not the franchise itself. You know, Rare's gone. They're not with Nintendo anymore, and they're never coming back, but it's like, you know, the characters are very much still beloved, it seems. And remember, they were very surprised and taken aback by K. Rool's domination in the Smash ballot. They had no idea. So, you know, they definitely could have a much more, I think there was reluctance to work with the legacy characters at first because they felt those are Rare's characters, we shouldn't touch those characters. Companies like Payon were able to get around that because they were not actually under the corporate Nintendo roof. But, and also, you know, the fans of Donkey Kong Country, who are now in their 30s, are moving up at Nintendo, so they're very much shaping things in our favor. And I definitely think that, you know, while there's no way to know just who will show up or when, I think the Kong family and K. Rool definitely are a sure bet. As much as I can forgive Jungle Beat now for their intentions were good, this won't be another Jungle Beat situation. All right, well, that pretty much wraps it up for now. I think I've hit it off around 15 minutes, probably. And so basically, like, will this game show at E3? I think it's very much possible. We discussed it at the beginning of the video. Now, there could have been delays via COVID-19, but we don't know for sure. Or perhaps, you know, maybe Nintendo just decided, well, it's maybe not ready to be shown, but this game's been in development for 4 years. So I think they're pretty much, you know, ready to show. I think it's going to be very interesting how this all plays out. Because this E3 is... We didn't really have an E3 last year because that was the prime of coronavirus, really. And there's just no way to know. But whether this game, no matter what form it takes, I just want it to be fun. I don't think that's a terribly unreasonable demand, as I've always said. The road to Country home. Because EPD staff, Miyamoto, and the sales all brought Country, the brand, home and to Universal Theme Park. Thank you, and see you next time, everyone.